Hello, I'm Virginia Delegate Bob Brink from the 48th District in Arlington and McLean, and this is my 5th weekly video update from the 2013 General Assembly session. This past Tuesday was crossover, the deadline for the House and Senate to complete consideration of their own bills and move them on to the other chamber. Having arrived at this legislative midpoint, we now have a much better idea of where we stand and what bills are still left standing. Many of the most controversial issues that confronted us at the beginning of the session have been sidelined. One of them is gun safety. In the wake of the Newtown school tragedy, a number of measures were introduced in an effort to curb gun violence. These included bills to enhance background checks on gun purchasers and to close the gun show loophole to ensure that dangerous weapons aren't getting into the wrong hands. One of them was a bill I introduced to reinstate Virginia's limitation on handgun purchases to one a month. This common sense measure was enacted on a bipartisan basis in 1993 because Virginia's lax gun laws had gained them the reputation as the gun-running capital of the East Coast. For nearly 20 years, one handgun a month helped keep guns off the streets in Washington, D.C., New York City, Boston, and communities here in Virginia. But then, last year, the General Assembly very unwisely repealed it. My reinstatement bill and every other gun safety measure introduced in the House fell by the wayside long before they ever got to the floor for an up or down vote. It's not all bad news, though. We have taken some worthwhile steps on school safety. The governor formed a task force on this topic, and on Friday he sent down a package of legislation that we'll consider before the end of the session. Also, the budget that we passed this week contains additional funding for public safety-related mental health needs. Physical security at our schools and on college campuses and mental health crisis intervention are components of the problem. But until we do something about gun violence, both at the state and national level, we're simply not fully facing up to the issue of school safety. After the long lines that voters encountered at the polls last November, you'd think that the General Assembly would have explored ways of making it easier to cast a ballot. But bill after bill to do this, by expanding absentee voting, extending the hours that the polls are open, or making Election Day a state holiday, went down to defeat. So did Governor McDonnell's proposal to restore voting rights for nonviolent criminals after they've served their sentences. In fact, the major election legislation still alive would make it even harder for some Virginians to vote by limiting the kind of identification you can show at the polls and by requiring a photo ID, which not all Virginians possess. We're going the wrong way on this topic. We should be making it easier, not harder, for eligible citizens to participate in the democratic process. Another hot issue that's received a great deal of attention is uranium mining in Virginia. I opposed lifting the 30-year-old moratorium on mining in Virginia because there are major environmental concerns that haven't been addressed, and also because I believe that mining activity in the affected part of the state could have a detrimental effect on that region's economy. A number of local elected officials expressed their concern about the proposal, and ultimately the bill was dropped by the state senator who had been sponsoring it. So, unless something unexpected happens before the end of the session, uranium mining is probably dead for the year. A major roadblock to our efforts to complete the remaining business by the February 23rd deadline was removed this week. You'll remember that on January 21st, Inauguration Day and Martin Luther King Day, the Senate Republicans took advantage of the absence of one Democratic senator to slip through a partisan plan that radically changed the lines of the state Senate districts to their advantage. Their move caused bad feelings and distrust just at the point where we need to come to consensus on some big issues like the budget and transportation. Well, this week, the Speaker of the House ruled that the Senate redistricting plan, which had been added to a housekeeping measure making technical adjustments to the House districts, was out of order. In parliamentary terms, that it was not germane to the original bill. We also had a breakthrough on the budget this week. Both the House and Senate Money Committees reported out their versions of the budget this week, and the respective bills were considered by the full chamber on Thursday. A major sticking point had been whether Virginia should expand the Medicaid program to provide health care to hundreds of thousands of uninsured Virginians. Under a provision of the Federal Affordable Care Act, the federal government would pick up almost all the cost of insuring these individuals for the first couple of years of the program. So it makes sense financially as well as in human terms. The budgets passed by both bodies contain provisions putting Virginia on a path toward Medicaid expansion. While the House version has a lot more conditions and a longer time frame to get to implementation, I think the House and Senate budget conferees can come to an agreement on this issue before the end of the session. We haven't come to consensus on the other big-ticket item on our agenda, transportation. This week, the House passed the governor's transportation plan pretty much intact and sent it over to the Senate. I've already talked about my concerns about this bill, and I voted against it on the House floor. Over on the Senate side, 3 separate transportation plans were voted down this week. So we're still a long way from coming to grips with this issue that we've avoided for decades and that threatens our economic vitality as well as our quality of life. There's still time for us to come up with a meaningful plan for transportation in Virginia, but every day that passes brings us one day closer to the end of the session on February 23rd. As always, please feel free to contact my office if you have any questions or concerns. My email is delegatebrink@gmail.com. I hope you'll visit my website, bobbrink.org, like me on Facebook, or follow me on Twitter @delbrink. I appreciate you taking the time to watch my crossover update, and I look forward to keeping you informed over the next several weeks. Again, this is Delegate Bob Brink, and thanks for watching.